So good to have you on the show today. How are you today?
Thanks a lot, man. I'm good. Just a quiet day here. Ducking out of the rain.
Yeah. Where are you at today?
I'm in Brooklyn, in Williamsburg.
Nice.
Working from home today to get some quiet and not be bothered by, well, I shouldn't say bothered, but I have run a startup team. So
yeah,
when I go in, everyone's asking for everything all the time.
Yeah. You're the CEO, founder, bottle washers, sales director. Yes. All
exactly.
Those things.
Yeah.
Well, good.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, I'm really excited to have you on today. It's going to be a lot of fun, and let's just get it. Yeah, let's just get into it. So, why don't you give the audience an introduction of who you are?
Sure. That's kind of a big question who I am, but I'll just kind of do the quick 30-second version, and then I guess we'll have an hour afterwards. So I'm, as you said, a CEO and co-founder of a contract platform, SaaS platform called Outlaw. We make the contract process for everyone, for all of our customers, just much more fluid and easy, and dare I say, even enjoyable. This is my second startup. So I've been in New York, kind of in the New York tech scene for about 15 years since graduating school. And I hope that I never have to work for anyone else again.
Nice.
Swore off of it the first time and then got sucked back in, and now I've sworn off of it again. So been in New York for 15 years, and I'm sure we'll get into all the other aspects of who I am.
Oh, we definitely will. We definitely will. So for the audience, Evan and I know each other. Our wives actually work together, and are not our wives. Evan's significant other and my wife work together.
Mm-hmm.
And sorry about that.
No worries.
And the net of that is Evan and I are neighbors in a small town up in the Catskills. So we both have houses by the same builder, same neighborhood. Yep. So we see each other up there more than we see each other in the city, which is very normal, actually. I see almost all my friends up in the Catskills and almost never in the city because they're just too busy during the week. So that's how Evan and I know each other. And so, Evan, this is the part of the show where we get to talk about our first impressions of each other when we first met. And I think for us, that was about, I want to say almost 6 years ago. I think I first met you when you guys came to see our house in February of 2014.
Yeah.
First time I met you, and I known Christy prior to that. So since it's my show, you get to go first. So what was your first impression of me?
Oh man, I was hoping you would go first.
No, that'd be way too easy.
I mean, I think my first impression of you was kind of, as you said, since we met through our partners. My first impression of you was kind of as a plus one. No offense, it was kind of it was.
It's still the case.
Christy and Kirsten.
It's still the case. Let's be clear.
I mean, honestly, I think my first like real impression where I felt like I knew you was that day in the pool at your party upstate.
Yeah.
I want to keep it PC, so I don't know if I can say much more than that. But it was really fun and funny, and I think it was spot on and accurate because you are a super generous and warm person. So yeah, I got to see that. And, of course.
Thank you for keeping it PG. I will expand upon that a little bit. So every 4th of July, my wife Kirsten and I, we throw a party. We have a pool at the house, and the inebriations were flowing quite nicely that day.
Yes.
And I was even more friendly than usual, and probably even more fun, bordering on not so much fun. And so I know what you're talking about. So thank you.
No. To me, it was pure fun. Honestly.
Oh, I'm sure it was very entertaining.
And you hold a superlative actually as well, which is that's the most inebriated I've ever seen someone while remaining like conscious and standing.
Amazing. I love it. So now it's my turn. So my first impression of you is, I don't really remember much other than you were Christie's plus one. I think my impression was also, I don't know if it was that party because maybe I didn't remember. I do remember talking to you, but it might have been another party where I just remember like meeting you and thinking you're obviously extremely intelligent and extremely thoughtful. And I think you and I might have almost opposite personalities. And like, you're I'm a very extroverted, like sales, blah, 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 blah. And you're like, I'm going to drop some serious knowledge on people, but I'm going to really think about it. Which I really appreciate because if everybody was like me, it would be nothing would ever get done. We just sit and talk all day. So what I really appreciate about you is like, we always have a thoughtful conversation. You help me to slow down. I think that was my initial thing when I first connected you. It was like, this is somebody I can actually take my time with, because my wife's in sales. I work with salespeople. So my impression of you is like extremely intelligent, extremely thoughtful, while also being just a really like loving and kind person as well. So
thanks.
Enough with the bro love. Let's get into it. So first question for you, Evan, is what is something that you nerd out about?
Magic the Gathering. I'm a lifelong on and off fan. I've never been like a serious player, but I feel like I spent all my nerd points on that from the time when I was like in 7th grade. And as a result, I missed a lot of other nerdy things. People are like, oh, you must be into Star Wars or Dungeons and Dragons. I'm like, nope, skipped all those. I was just really into Magic to the social detriment for several key years in there. But now it's cool because it's just kind of like a once or twice a year, like strong burst of nostalgia that I'll get together with 1 or 2 friends from like middle school, high school, and play Magic all day long, and open packs and do that thing.
Man, I had no idea. That's amazing. That's amazing. Have you ever been and played at one of the super cool like game places here in New York City?
Yeah, I've been to. There's a. I've never played there, but I'll buy cards again at the once or twice a year when I'll buy cards and nerd out with a friend. I'll usually go to 20-sided store, which is actually really close now to my apartment. And I know they do like Friday night Magic nights and stuff, and have all kinds of tournaments. I'm kind of like, I don't know if I can bring myself to achieve that level of nerddom, or I guess I'm probably already there. I just can't bring myself to admit it yet. But someday, maybe that's a goal for 2020, because it would be super fun
to play more Magic.
To go to one of those, and admit that is who I am.
Yeah. So this is amazing. First of all, I had no idea. I've never played Magic. I'm a video gamer.
Yeah.
So when you say 20-sided die, that's D&D rolls, right?
Yeah, it's a reference to D&D, which I've never actually played.
I haven't either.
Yeah, I'm a huge gamer too, but at this point, I feel like gaming is so mainstream. I don't even know if it's like a nerd out thing. I'm very proud actually that, and some people are not sufficiently shocked by this number, but I played World of Warcraft on and off for like 10 years. Currently off as of like 5 years ago, but it tells you how much you've played if you want to check at any time. God. And I think it was, I'm pretty sure it was upwards of 6,000 hours. And it's a lot of time, but like most people watch TV for that much time over a couple of years. And I actually gain a whole lot more. There's so many aspects of a game like that people who don't play or have never experienced that just can't really contemplate. There's a huge social aspect. There's a leadership aspect. I actually hired one of my longtime friends who I hired at my first job. He had put raid leader on his resume. And
that's awesome.
Other people there didn't know. And it was in like early days of WoW. And I was like, this means that this guy can command the attention and respect of 40 people through just text chat who have no other, nothing holding them or requiring them to like listen to him.
So good.
That's like a real qualifier for a producer, which so yeah, I guess I nerd out about games as well, particularly with respect to like social dynamics in virtual worlds.
Yeah, I just want to make it clear to the audience, we're talking to somebody who's been the CEO of 2 companies, has built a product from scratch, has held down a relationship, has done really well for himself as a human being, and has played over 6,000 hours of WoW. And for those of you who don't know what we're specifically referring to, just Google Leroy Jenkins.
Yes.
And you will see what a raid looks like. That's the classic scene. And I'm assuming you were not in that raid party. Or maybe you're Leroy.
You're
not Leroy.
I'm not Leroy. it's like, I think it's widely debated whether that's real or not, because it's so well done if it's not real, but it's,
I didn't know that.
and then there were spoofs of it. They're live spoof. Have you seen these? Leroy
No.
Lives? Oh man,
No.
Google Leroy Lives.
Oh my God, yes.
Has basically the same scenarios in corporate settings. It's like the same script applied to something like planning to go into a board meeting.
So I've seen there's a show, Workaholics. They did a spoof of that. I don't know if you've ever seen that show. It was really funny. I think The Simpsons did. It's like a real pop culture reference now.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's like you actually use the term. You're like, oh, you're about to do a Leroy. So good. That's amazing. Well, thank you for sharing that. I had no idea. So maybe you could introduce me to Magic. I've actually never played any sort of card games like that. I only play video games. So
yeah, I'd love to. The trick with that game is that it's so freaking complex at this point, and there's no way. It's like they try to do starter stuff, but it's like it's a really high barrier to entry. There's so much learning. You have to be ready to like commit to learning for like three hours before you can actually do anything. So one thing I
can guarantee you, upstate. We play a lot of Settlers of Catan, which is a ton of fun but much easier. One thing I can guarantee you is that Kirsten will never play Magic the Gathering.
Yeah,
like she'd be like, "What? What's a gnome or what's an out?" Like she could just care less.
Christy's been a really good sport about that stuff over the years. She learned enough that it was like, she was able to play a game or two, but it's definitely not her thing.
Yeah. Well, thanks for sharing that. That is definitely a nerdy answer to a question about that, but in a fun way. And you obviously get a lot accomplished while still playing Magic the Gathering and World of Warcraft and all the other stuff. So next we're going to talk a little bit about your comfort zone. And we're going to start with something that's inside of your comfort zone that might be outside of somebody else's comfort zone. Anything come to mind?
Yeah, I mean, I think my inside and outside of my comfort zone kind of map directly to inside and outside of my own head. To your point earlier about introvert extrovert, I certainly identify as an introvert. I love people and I like spending time with people, but I'm much more comfortable one-on-one, and so than in like a party setting or a group setting, and not even much more comfortable. I mean, I'm comfortable, with a team or something that I've built, of course, but it's the measure I generally do is like, does it give me which one gives me energy versus which one kind of takes energy away? And my comfort zone is like coding all day long. I'm just in my own head, building my own world, and I can do it for longer than anyone else I know. Like I'll code if I have just a clear day with no meetings, and I'll just stay home and something clear to build. I'm kind of like, I've been doing it for so long, and I love it so much that nothing scares me at that point. There's no outside of and it'll be stuff that I've never done before or built before, but I'm like, oh, I'll figure this out. I just need to think about it and try stuff and research. And 12 hours later, I'm like, here, I made something. This thing exists now. And so that is totally my comfort zone. Is kind of just the world in my head, basically. And
to validate you, that's my worst nightmare. So that is so outside of my comfort zone. Not my comfort zone. Like, first of all, I don't code, nor do I ever want to code. I can do basic coding, but I don't enjoy it. I just don't care. And also like 12 hours of solitude with my face on a computer. So not my comfort zone. If I don't talk to somebody, so like, for example, when I go upstate by myself, and sometimes my only communication for the day, and Chris makes fun of me, is like literally going to the local grocery store to like thank the register person. And like, that's the only human interaction I have. And like, after like 3 days, my friends will be like, my friend Aaron and Marcus, who Aaron will be like, I think you need to spend some time with some people. Like I get like all like weird upstate, like mountain man. I'm like kind of like not in a good place. So like burying my face in a computer, even like I love video games, but even like me after a few hours, I'm like, all right, I need to do something else. Like I just don't have, I also don't have that. That's one thing that I really admire about you is like, you have a supreme ability to really focus. And I just, after a certain time, I get bored no matter what it is. So
I don't get bored. I think that I kind of attribute it to partially to being forced to go to Hebrew school and synagogue when I was like really young, and I'm like bored out of my mind for 2-3 hours at a time, and it's kind of good training to just to retreat into your own mind and just kind of learn to enjoy. I guess it's sort of like a meditation in a way, to learn to enjoy that and be comfortable in your own head. There's obviously lots of downsides to that as well. But yeah, and then on the flip side, it's the extrovert thing. Like outside of I recently did something that was way outside of my comfort zone, and that is go to dinner. Well, first, I'm sorry. So recently, I actually did something that was way outside my comfort zone, and that is go out socially alone. I literally had never done that, and Christy was away. It happened to be the weekend before Halloween. Christy was away for the weekend, and so for most of the weekend, I was just hanging out comfortably by myself, enjoying myself, and I remember she had really advised that it's fun to go out to a sushi bar. That's like a good kind of first solo social thing, because it's kind of more socially acceptable. So I was like, all right, I'm going to go we have a really nice sushi place around the corner. I'm going to go there for dinner. And it was still a little bit uncomfortable, but I didn't feel awkward that, it was like, you can sit for one at the bar. And I'm like, first, I'm not really alone. I'm like texting her that I'm doing it as I'm doing it. I'm like, retreating into your phone is I feel like it's a cop out, because like everyone can, if you're alone, you can just sit there and be in the virtual world. But I kind of forced myself to put my phone down, and that was a good experience, and just kind of really focused on the food and interact with the chef more than I would. And then I felt so kind of confident from that. I was like, and this is Saturday night, by the way. This is Saturday night in New York, in Brooklyn, before Halloween. So it's like a big party weekend. And I was like, I said superlatives before. I like superlatives because I was like, I'm going to go to a local bar alone, and not be like meeting a friend, just like fucking go alone. And I was like, because if I can do that now and like get comfortable with it, it only gets easier from there,
Yeah. Oh yeah.
That's like a pretty kind of aggressive introverted thing to do for an introvert. And so I did. I went out. I mean, alcohol helps for sure, but I went out and drank, and I really tried to resist the urge to get on my phone, because I feel like that's cheating. And it was awkward, man. It was like the first 20-30 minutes, I'm just like, other people come in parties and dates and stuff, and I'm just sitting there at the bar, just looking around, but it was good, because afterwards I was like, there was no harm done. It was like an awkward social experience for me. And eventually I started talking to people, like people sat down. It was challenging at first, because it was like really sparse too. But then once it fills up, people fill in, and you kind of like interact a little bit, and it was a good experience.
That's cool.
But definitely outside my comfort zone.
Yeah, it's super cool. This is interesting. Like, I'm a complete people person, like 98% extrovert, like spending tons of time with people. Two of my favorite things to do are go to movies by myself and go out to eat by myself. I'll bring like my Kindle and read.
Yeah.
And or go one of my favorite things in the world to do is go to a movie by myself, which is kind of cheating, because you can't really talk to people anyway.
Yeah, that doesn't scare me. Like I haven't done that, but I would do that, because it's a solo experience anyway. But yeah, and the Kindle, like the phone, is kind of a cop out, I think, in terms of in terms of the social. If you're in it for like kind of the social challenge, I guess. Because then it's like you're occupied, or you can go. I mean, I've sat at cafes for lunch and worked. That's the same thing, effectively.
Yeah. Well, so for me, the breakthrough is to not meet like 20 people at the bar. Like for me, as you've seen, as you alluded to earlier, a few drinks, and I'm like, hey, who wants to talk to me? So for me, like, I don't really go to bars myself anymore because like busy or I have friends around or married, but I think that's super cool. And I'm guessing you ended up probably having some pretty cool conversations with people.
Yeah, even just the fact of interacting and having conversations and was good. And again, I don't mean to paint myself as like someone who can't talk to people, but it's just like it's that like initial ice breaking period of like, hey, are we gonna interact? You know,
right?
That is that I've just never been comfortable with, and so it's kind of forcing myself to jump in and see what happens.
That's cool. That's a really cool way to practice. I'll remember that for some of my other friends that are a little more extroverted or introverted, and I think that's a super cool practice. So, moving along, I'm going to give you 5 minutes to give a speech, and you get to give it to the whole world. You're the State of the Union starring Evan, and it's broadcast to the whole world, and it's going to be live streamed and recorded, so everybody's going to watch it. What would you give your speech on, and why?
I can't not think of this when I saw this question in your preview email. I'm just going to plagiarize the speech from Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure. It's a lot shorter than 5 minutes. Be excellent to each other. And party on, dudes.
Party on, dudes. I have not seen that movie forever, and it's a great message. Be excellent to one another. So what does being excellent to one another mean to you?
Well, the more less 80s and more colloquial version that I repeat pretty regularly is just don't be an asshole. It's really like golden rule stuff. Just like treat others the way you want to be treated.
Yeah.
And I've learned this from a lot of different places, but I have two cats. One of whom hopefully hasn't impacted the audio, but you've seen past the camera 15 times already.
Haven't heard it.
And they really just want to be loved. That's it. Like you can trigger their fear really quickly, and then they become completely different animals. But at a normal day at home, all they want to do is just cuddle and be loved. And I think like that's actually all everybody wants. Yep. Period. Beyond obviously there's like basic survival and things like that, but it's if you're surviving, and you know the Maslow's hierarchy stuff.
Sure. Yeah.
I think they're just people want to be decent to each other and want to give and receive love. Sorry if that's cheesy, but
no, that's not cheesy at all. I think that's beautiful. Can I ask you a follow-up question around that?
Sure.
What's your opinion on why people are not excellent to each other? Because there's a lot of people who are not excellent to each other, or really in my opinion, to most of humanity. Like, what is it that creates that in people?
I think it's a fear. It's fear at the most basic level, and it's kind of fear of not actually being able to survive. And a lot of it's weird. There's large groups of people for whom that fear is absolutely legitimate, and they actually are. Their daily lives actually are, whether it's like directly, in terms of like violent conflict survival, but even much more indirectly, just kind of 1% stuff and income disparity stuff, and people who are just kind of their daily experience is can I live? Can I make rent? Can I keep this job, or whatever it is? And that's. I mean, we could talk for hours on that. It's tragic. It's tragic. Yeah. But there's also huge groups of people as well who really actually are able to survive. Like for whom, if they step back and really ask them, why are you acting that way? They'll describe it in those terms. And then if you follow up and say, well, are you really, like, what's going to happen? Like, are you really worried about losing your job? You're a VP of whatever. Like, why are you treating everyone like shit? And even if you do lose your job, you're going to go and be a VP of whatever somewhere else. Like, it's not that fear of survival is like, it's kind of this familiar thing that happens, but it's not really founded in their lives. And it's tough because I think like the reality is there's a lot more abundance out there than people internalize. And I think when you do internalize that abundance, and so they're in a mindset of scarcity. And so they're like, oh, their mindset is like, if I don't kind of it's a zero sum thing. Like if I don't step over someone and get mine, then someone else is going to get mine, whatever that thing is, if it's a job or money or love, and when you shift in that mindset from scarcity to one of abundance, it becomes a lot easier to be decent to people.
Yeah. Well, I'm really glad you talked about abundance and scarcity, because I was actually going to bring up the scarcity mindset if you didn't. So one of the things, I've been doing a lot of personal development work on myself in the last couple of years. And one of the things I realized working in sales for, up until this year, I've lived in a scarcity mindset almost all the time.
Oh, wow.
Quarterly. Yeah. It's actually really exhausting. And it's been a big struggle for me to actually make that shift, because I still look at like my business that I'm building now is like, where's my next clients, or like, what am I going to do next? And like, there's never enough. So I've realized that a context that I live in a lot when I'm in survival mode, which is like you're talking about, is like, it's not enough. It's not enough. It's not enough.
Mm-hmm.
And it's very destructive. And I'm doing a lot of work on that. And I'm making the shift to sounds like you're more aligned to the abundance mindset. In some ways I'm starting to see that for myself, but it's definitely a struggle that I have, because when you get pounded in sales every quarter, and I've worked for a couple companies where we really had like massive quotas that just weren't achievable. We had some product issues, or we got lapped in the marketplace by acquisitions. It feels real. Like you're like, it's scarce to find people who are going to buy this, because we're just not competing anymore.
Yeah.
So it's funny. We're like mind melding, because I'm like, oh, this feels like abundance and scarcity. And then you're like,
yeah,
it's abundance and scarcity. So we are on the same page. So thank you very much for that.
Yeah.
Cool. So just to recap, was it Keanu, or was it Keanu was Ted, right? And Bill was the other guy?
Keanu was, I don't remember which. I don't actually think that was either of them. I think it was George Carlin who plays God.
Oh, right. That's right. I forgot that George Carlin plays God in that.
Yeah.
That's amazing. I haven't thought about that movie in a long time. Talk about a movie with one person who goes on to do a lot of stuff, and the other person, like, I have no idea what the guy's doing, but
probably nothing after that. Yeah. I think you're right. I think Keanu was Ted.
Yeah, it's a great movie. I need to watch that again. I'm sure it's cheesy, but also super cool. So this is the part of the show, Evan, where you get to just share like your journey. So like whatever you want to share with the audience about you. And obviously you ended up on the podcast here today. You've done a lot of things in your career. You've done a lot of things in your personal life. Yeah, this is just where you get a chance to open up and share whatever you'd like with myself and with the audience.
Man, my journey. It's hard not to go straight into like professional journey, because the personal stuff comes out as you're talking about it, but I don't know, it doesn't feel appropriate to talk about personal journey directly. But I'll do. I guess I certainly, I was talking about being a coder, and I really just identify as being an entrepreneur and a builder and a creator, problem solver. This is my second kind of true tech startup, but there's various other businesses that I've started, many of which I've started with my partner, with Christy. That's a huge part of my journey, my personal journey, and they intertwine a lot, which I'll talk about a little bit later. But so I mean, I'd say like the first time around was a travel discovery site called Wanderfly. When we started that she and I were co-founders, actually 2 of 5 co-founders, and it should have been, we were 3 by the end of it, but that was one of the big things we learned in the process. And that was
sorry, Devin. You learned too many co-founders. Like you need to keep this too
many co-founders. Too many cooks in the kitchen. Although then there's things like PayPal, which I think had 6, and that worked for them, and now they're like this crew who just grew. But so we started that we were 5 years out of school when we started it, and started in 2009, and exited in 2012. So we worked. I mean, really, we started in 2008, but there's kind of different dates to start from when you start kicking stuff around. But a lot of that was, in terms of personal journey, was just so many. Everything was new all the time, And so it was like this kind of itch of oh my gosh, what are we going to do about this? We've never fundraised before. We've never actually started a real company before. We've never had employees before. All these firsts, and you're just thrown in again and again and again. And so you kind of you get a little addicted, or at least I got addicted to just that experience of really it's learning at its core, where you're like, okay, this is new. I don't know, but I have people around me who I trust. We're going to do our best and see what happens. And then generally somewhere between like 2 weeks to maybe a couple of months, you kind of look back and you're like, oh, I did that. I didn't knock it out of the park on the first one. I, made all kinds of errors, but I still did it. We did raise money. We did build a product. We did do this and this and this. We did hire employees. We made a lot of mistakes and also had to fire employees. That was also a first as well. And so, but I think in that experience, I really kind of found that identity. And I always wanted to start a company and be a tech. I knew I was going to be in tech from, I'd say, like early college. But I think I always kind of knew I wanted to be an entrepreneur as well. And it also helped that like the New York tech scene was very much blossoming right around that time. The financial crisis had just happened. Actually, we had a really interesting experience where we were just starting. It actually was Living Breathing, which is a consulting business that we started about a year before Wanderfly. And that was really my first company, but it was very non I don't even need to get it. It was kind of not real in certain respects. In the ways that I'm talking about as like being really like a real company. But we had this experience where like maybe like 2 months before the financial crisis, there were several of us, I think 4 of us, who were all leaving our jobs. And we would tell people that, and this is back in like early 2008, and you get these crazy looks. Like people were like, why you have these great jobs? You're 25 and you have an awesome, like, you're a producer at a gaming studio. Why would you leave that? And we're like, because I want to do my own thing. Like it's and so we all made these decisions very proactively. Literally 3 months later, when like tons of people lost their jobs, and it became very, very suddenly cool to start your own thing, because it doesn't sound good to say, oh, I just got laid off along with 6,000 other people. It sounds good to talk about what you're going to do, right?
Right.
So
yeah,
we got there was one particular day, for whatever reason, when like 5 different people reached out to us asking if we were hiring. Like, and we went from being like the weird, risky choice to somehow this like perceived bastion of stability. And and then in the several years after that, then we started companies and stuff, and people, and then it became cool to now if you leave a job and start a company, everyone's like, hey, good for you, that's awesome. Who's your investor or something? But so it was really kind of coincidental in time wise, but it was good to know, and I think an important piece of that kind of personal journey, to feel like we made that decision intentionally, and decided to do that because we and I wanted to do that. Now, and I mentioned, I keep getting, I made that decision to start our own thing and to kind of be my own boss. When we exited to TripAdvisor, that sucked us straight back into corporate America, and suddenly I went from being a startup CEO to, I don't know what my title, director of product in some division somewhere. And that, was the right decision for sure to sell the company. It was time, but we went through a pretty massive culture shock going from, we also had to move for the acquisition. So Christy and I moved up from Boston to from Brooklyn to Boston, and that alone was a culture shock. But we were also working in the suburbs of Boston. That was a big culture shock, and then the culture shock of just having a boss, frankly. and Christy handled it phenomenally. She's like happy she's much more, she doesn't have the same kind of need to be an entrepreneur that I have. So she handled it now, and she's at Facebook, as you were mentioning. She's totally happy to be an employee, but I just can't do that anymore. And I learned that at TripAdvisor. I learned that. I mean, I had already learned it before starting Wanderfly, but then I learned it at TripAdvisor, and then I wanted to go back to New York so badly that Christy and I kind of did a parallel job search and landed back at Google for me and Facebook for her. And there too, that was actually a huge, not culture shock, because I like the people at Google, and we actually moved back to our same apartment in Brooklyn.
That's so cool.
That we had been living in. So it was like comfortable to be back there, but it was just very corporate and very just shocking to me. I always had Google as this like perfect place to work in my mind. And maybe in 2004 and 5, when I first wanted to work for Google, maybe it would have been. By the time I started at Google in 2013, it was just super corporate and million layers and levels and hard to get anything done. And it was this weird cognitive dissonance that I was in for like several years, because they wanted to pay me so much money. I've one of the only things that's been consistently true is in my entire career is that the more someone wants to pay me, the less they want me to actually do. And I was surrounded by people, and I was like, oh, I'm just raking it in, and I'm gonna do that for a little while to just shore up the bank account and basically give myself personal runway for the next startup. And but I was really truly miserable at Google. I was just frustrated at every turn. I wasn't able to get anything done, and I felt like this kind of I don't know if this is the right metaphor to use, but kind of like a powerful machine that was just sitting idling, and capable of so much, and having just done so much at my startup. And I was like, they just want to pay me all this money to like go to meetings and not really do anything and get great free lunch. And at a point, I just said, they have an internal compensation tool, which is kind of funny in and of itself. It's like the amount of salaried time that has been invested on building a tool that employees can use to see how much money they make. And so I logged into this tool. I literally took a screenshot. This is now March of 2016. I took a screenshot of my compensation trajectory and saved it in a personal file as opportunity cost, and I quit. And I was like, okay, so I know my market value, and it's more than I imagined it would be. But I'm also not doing anything here, and I need to do something. So I quit in March of 16, and then started Outlaw with Dan, kind of informally. Basically, just a few months later, we started kicking around the idea. The idea for Outlaw for this contract platform was something I had from actually for a really, really long time. I'd had this idea of just a better editor, basically a better word processor that uses more structured data and allows you to kind of have better control over a structured negotiation process. And it was actually in the acquisition when we sold Wanderfly that I was so disgusted with the process that I was like, okay, I literally told my team, I was like, this is the next business that I'm starting. It's not going to be now. I'm going to wait a few years and like recoup energy and personal finance runway. But I actually did know that was going to be the next venture. That this would be the next venture. But at the moment that we sold the first one,
Oh, I didn't know that. So you had the idea for Outlaw in, if I recall, that 2012.
Yep.
I didn't know that. Yeah, I remember when you first told me about Outlaw, and because I'm a like software tech person as well. and have used like lots of SaaS platforms to do stuff in my day-to-day job when I work for other people as well. I remember I'm like, that sounds amazing. Like that process is always really crappy. And it stinks. And that would be really good to have something like that. And now I think you guys have been live in the market, selling a product and great reviews and lots of really amazing customers, including some really significant brand names. I think it's been out for about a year and a half now, right? Is a product
a little over a year. I guess a year and a half. I'd say really in a real way for the last year, because we raised friends and family money in mid 17, and then we raised late 17, and then raised a venture. Well, it's now called a seed round, what used to be called a Series A, but a $2 million seed round almost exactly a year ago in December of 2018. And really following that, that's like once you have venture money, even if it's not a ton of venture money, that's when it gets real, basically. You've got, you mature in a lot of really good ways. Like we've had a really good experience with our lead investor. So I kind of consider that, we had a product that we were kind of technically selling before that, but selling enough to show investors like, hey, there's something here. But now it's like a repeatable, like we know who our market is, we know how to serve that market, and it's a lot of fun at this point. We're in really good shape. We have an awesome team. I guess that brings us current.
Yeah, it's pretty current. What's been the biggest surprise in your journey with Outlaw specifically?
The biggest surprise? Well, it's fucking hard to hire great salespeople. That's been the biggest. I don't know if I guess that's a surprise. Yeah.
Did you not have salespeople? Did you not have salespeople at Wonderfly? Were you guys are doing your own internal sales?
We never really had at Wonderfly, we never really knew what our business model was. It was consumer travel. And so like, truth be told, the idea for the company was, the idea was never really a business idea. It was a product idea. And while there was definitely, I would still say Outlaw was primarily a product idea as well, but it was a product idea in a market where there's no question about whether there's a business model there.
Right.
It's like, okay, it's business software. The business model of business software is you sell the software to other businesses. There's a lot of questions of like how big and who's your market, what verticals and all that, and what's the sales process look like. But we've known what our business model is from the very start. So that was one of the huge things that I really consciously wanted to do differently the second time around. But so we never really had a sales force that we were hiring and building in the first one. But this time, because my co-founder and I are both product, he's a designer, and also, I don't know, I think you know this, but for the audience, it's actually how we got our name Outlaw, is that Dan is my co-founder, and we met because Dan and I are the significant others of two sisters. So we're both in long-term relationships, and neither couple is married, but both are kind of life partnership type relationships. And so we actually had already started calling each other brother outlaws, as opposed to as opposed to in-laws. And then we started working on this before we actually had the name. We kind of chose a silly working title called Deal Master Pro 5000.
You should. I think you should have stuck with that.
Well, it's funny. We chose that because I know how easy it is to get attached to something after you've been working on it for a while, and to not do the proper kind of naming and branding exercise. So I said, let's work on it and call it something totally preposterous and silly, so that there's no chance that we're going to get attached to that. So we worked on it and started building this whole thing. And then when we were looking for a name, it was okay. It's kind of like a leading edge legal tech thing. It's about law and stuff, and we're already calling each other outlaws. So that's the name.
That's perfect. That's super cool. So obviously you've had a real entrepreneurial journey, and in between that, you worked for Google. Curious for the entrepreneurs listening today, if you've got any sage wisdom or something for somebody who's out there listening, who's where you were in 2008, and you're like, hey, I want to start a company. Like, what would you give the advice to? And I know you probably do some mentoring in the space now already. Like, what's kind of the first piece of advice you give to people?
Yeah, when they say I want to start a company, I say go and start a company. Go do it. That's it. I mean, it's the Nike slogan. Just do it. There's no starting a company, especially now in 2019 or almost 2020. It's like it's the thing you don't need any other training for. Like, for one, the only real training you can get for it is by doing it. Mm-hmm. But in terms of like the guidance and the wisdom and how do I do this, there's so much of it available online. And there's these really kind of rich startup culture and networks that are available to anyone really who wants to join them and just start going. Go to startup events and meetups and things like that. But really, it's just start doing it. Like the cost of incorporation is like $200 or $300, right? And you can do a bunch of stuff before you even incorporate.
Right.
So it basically costs nothing to start effectively. And you're also not going to know whether you really want to do it until you start doing it. So I really enjoy. I always tell people, like, I've done this several times, and I have other friends who are like, oh, I'm thinking about leaving. I'm thinking about starting my thing. I mean, I probably gave you this speech when you were talking about your coaching, and I'm like, yeah, anyone who does kind of want a push. Some people don't. Some people, they say it, and I think they say they want to start something because they think that's what I want to hear. And I'm like, I don't care what you want to do. If you want to be an employee, great, fine. Yeah, like, whatever makes you happy. But some people, are kind of like, oh, I've been wanting to do this for a while. I'm thinking about doing it. I'm like, I'll give you that push if you're ready for that, and you're asking for that push. I love doing that for people. Yeah, because no one ever regrets it. That's the other thing. Like, no one. I have not talked. That's not to say it will always work out. People start stuff and it doesn't work out, and then they either start something else or go back to a corporate job or something. But I have, out of probably hundreds of current and wannabe and past entrepreneurs that I've talked to, I haven't heard anyone say that they regretted doing it.
That's ever. Right. Yeah. So just a little bit about my story here, or what I've experienced is, and I don't know if this has been your experience, it's never fast enough. Like whatever speed you think you're going to go at. And I think you and I are similar. We're both guys where we know how to get stuff done and like set up things quickly and get it moving. Yeah. But it's just like never fast enough. And even for me, like, I've been on my own for 6 months now. And in some ways I've created this amazing life that I never knew existed a year ago. But in other ways I'm like, man, it feels like I'm just not really doing anything. And like, it's like almost like a battle day to day. So I guess the advice I'd give to the audience is, whether you want to start like a coaching business, consulting, you want to start a tech startup, anything you want to do, is like, that's the one thing I hear from most everybody. It's never happens as fast as you think it's going to, because it's just there's just a lot of things that you like can't predict. And there's going to be a tremendous roller coasters of ups and downs. Yeah. But I'm with you. Like, no matter, it's been the best 6 months of my career, and I've been working for almost 20 years. So yeah, I completely agree with that sentiment. So that's a good little segue into the part of the show where you get to ask me anything you would like. And really, the sky's the limit. I mean, I reserve the right to punt and go to the next question. Yeah. But I don't. Based on the fact that you kept the PG before, I think you'll probably give me something good and juicy here. So, Evan, what would you like to ask me that I can answer for you and for the audience?
When we were talking about abundance, scarcity, I think I really that theme. I love hearing that theme is coming up for you. It's been coming up for me in a lot of different respects, and I was curious to go deep. I was actually surprised, but your backstory made sense. Mm-hmm. I'm curious to hear more about that journey, because that's a really challenging journey. It's awesome that you've identified that you are going through it and that you want to go through it, but it's also not the kind of thing that I believe people can just do by wanting to do it. It's like you have to have experiences that teach you that the world is different from what you thought it was, or that it can be different from what. So I'm curious, I don't know what my question is, just to hear more.
Yeah. Well, so this is, so there's a question in there. I think the question is what's your viewpoint on kind of what I alluded to with the abundance and scarcity? So,
or how far, or how close are you? Like you talked about shifting. Like, are you, where are you in that?
What time is it? It depends on the hour of the day for me.
Fair.
So this is just to back it up a little bit. So this is something in the coaching world we call a context. So a context is the lens that you view the world through, and then everything else that is underneath it is like the content, right? So you can have an abundance mindset or a scarcity mindset around almost anything. And I think you alluded to it. So you said love. So for some people, they're like, oh my God, I have so much love. Some people, it's never enough. It's never never enough. The two contexts that I hear most of my clients come with a scarcity mindset are two things. One, financial, or possessions, or net worth and all that. It's just not enough. It's not enough. I need to pay bills, or I think I need enough. That's the first one. And I kind of alluded to this when I was mentioning being patient. For me, that's like my scarcity is like, I want more clients. I want them to pay me more. Like, totally normal business owner. The second context that I actually have an abundance mindset around, which I've been told makes me quite an aberration. And one of my friends calls me, they say I'm like Neo in the Matrix around this, is time. So there's a lot of people who have a super scarcity mindset around time. I never have enough time to do all the things I want to. And so for me, like where I really struggle is like I have a scarcity mindset around money and an abundance mindset around time. Like my friend, I actually reviewed with my friend Anna, who's been on the show. She said, can you just walk me through what you did yesterday? And I was like, sure. And she got done and she goes, how is that possible? And I'm like, what do you mean? And she's like, you literally did like 24 different things that moved you forward, and you spent time with your family, and you talked to friends, and you played some video games, like all these things. So with me, like time, I like to play with time. So I'm good on the abundance there. The scarcity comes around, which I think is very normal for people that are entrepreneurs, is I worked for 20 years in corporate. So for 20 years, I got a paycheck every 2 weeks. Mm-hmm. And then suddenly when I left, and the first 2 Fridays after I left, I was like, oh wait, there's no paycheck. Wait, I thought I was supposed to just make all this money back right away. So the scarcity comes around comparing, for me, really comes down to comparing what only thing I ever knew to this new unknown for me. And yes, like logically, I know that I'm not going to make the same money, but it's like the tricks that are mine of like a lot of people compare themselves to other people. I kind of have this weird thing where I compare my new to my old Jason. It's like a new coach Jason, entrepreneur Jason to that. So I'm hard on myself because I compare myself like, well, you used to do this, you used to make this, so you should be able to make this. Like 3 months in, it's like, really, is that realistic? So some days I feel a tremendous sense of gratitude, and I feel grateful, and I'm like, hey, like I'm patient, I'm good. But I have two contexts that I live in a lot, which is the struggle I have. One, it's not enough. This is financial, clients, my business, all that stuff. Second context I live in a lot is if I'm being patient, I'm not working. Like for me, I have to be impatient in order to drive myself, which is very destructive. And I know that. Yeah.
Even with yourself.
Yeah, with myself. So like I, starting this business, I'm out doing the work all the time. Like I have meeting a ton of people, planting seeds, probably what you do. Like when you started Outlaw, like you're out like talking to anybody who's going to listen, like, hey, I'm starting this contract lifecycle management platform. I'm doing the same thing. And then when that doesn't immediately result in my business growing, I'm like, what's going wrong? So for me, it's like, it's all about impatience. Yeah. And that relates to the scarcity mindset. But there are days where I'm like today, I'm in a like, hey, I'm patient. And then tomorrow I might wake up and be like, what's wrong with you?
Why are they calling me back?
That's right.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Well, you're right. You're right to identify that that's a rare and valuable mindset to be in around time, to feel like you have all the time you need, and to be able to just be generous with it and still do everything you need to do. And I think the scarcity you're experiencing on the, I guess on the results side, or having it not go as fast as you want it to go, is because most of the rest of the world, as you pointed out, feels really scarce about time.
Yeah.
And so it's I totally agree with you. It's like, in terms of not happening as fast as you want it to happen, it's because like, you're there, you've made the decision, or you're ready to go. Why isn't everyone else ready? Well, it's because they're like busy as hell, and like might really want. I'm sure you have coaching clients who or soon to be coaching clients who are like, oh my god, like who they're sold, right? They're like, yes, I want to do this, I'm ready to go. Maybe they even sign something, maybe they even pay you, and then they like cancel, or like they stretch it out, and you're like, and it just takes longer because they don't have that abundance of time, or they don't think they do.
Yeah. Well, and then that's something that we get to work on together once they become clients, which is super cool. Like, I liken this to, there are companies that Outlaw is the absolute perfect solution for. The ROI is almost immediate, and they're just like, no, because I got, like, oh, it's end of the year, like all these excuses. It's the same thing.
Yeah. And, or we get someone who we actually get them over the line, and they sign the contract, and then it takes them, months longer to get started using it. And we're ready to go. We're like, all right, your templates are there. You're ready. Like, you are ready to use this. But then they have a million other things going on. And so it doesn't really cost us any. If anything, it costs them something, because we're billing monthly or annually. And so they're just, sitting on the platform for a couple of months before they start to become active. But it's, I totally identify with when you're saying it doesn't feel fast enough. We're constantly joking about just startup time being just like a different dimension. And what we consider fast, like we're able to move at the speed of our own decisions, basically, which happen. There's only 10 of us, and there's only, in any particular domain, there's usually only 2 or 3 of us making a decision. And the actual decision takes half an hour. You talk about it and you decide something, and then it becomes truth. But
that's right.
We're like, we need to update our prices. Okay, the prices are updated. Done.
Hey, Dad, go change the website.
Yeah, exactly. Why doesn't the world know about our new prices? Well, because they're busy doing other things, right?
Yeah. So there's an interesting thing, and then we'll turn it back around on you, because I don't know why I'm talking about this. Is too long for me. Like, this is terrible.
I had a good question then.
You had a great question. So there's a podcast I listen to that's really good, and it's around it's a sales podcast, and this person has this really cool thing that I remind myself of, and I think it's useful for you to give to your sales team, and for me is like, and this goes to abundance mindset. Like, what would you do differently if you truly believed that there was more customers out there than Outlaw could ever serve? If there was more, if my ideal clients, if there's more ideal clients for Jason than I could ever serve, like I would have a waiting list of like 5 years. How would I operate, and what would I do from an abundance mindset of like, how would I show up? What's the thing that I'm putting off doing that I would actually take on, believing that that's true? Because it's almost factual that it actually is true. Like there's enough customers for Outlaw to IPO or whatever it is that you have in mind for your company. We all are limited by some sort of bandwidth at some point. I mean, you can hire more people, I could hire more coaches, but I'm limited only by my bandwidth. And as we talk about, not really my time, because I play with the time.
Yeah.
So, just like, what would you do? What would you do if I think this is good for salespeople too. Is like, what would you do if you knew your perfect prospect that was the elephant that was going to make your quota for the year was out there? Because they are out there. They actually are. You just got to go find them.
Yeah. What would I do? I don't know if this is I think I am doing what I would do, because I do believe that. So, yeah. I do genuinely and my goal is not IPO right now. My goal is, we have a seed round of cash in the bank. We have still a healthy amount of runway even after a year. And so our goal is basically viability, get enough customers to become closer, not necessarily profitable, but like with profitability and or sustainability in sight. And it's TBD whether that's possible on the exact runway we have. But
Sure.
as long as we're making progress, I have a really long list of investors who are trying to put more money in. So I feel like capital's available. I'm not freaking out about runway. And we don't need to have 1,000 times as many customers as we have. We need to get like 3 to 5 times as many customers as we have to reach that. And we just tripled our sales team. So I feel like, we're going to get there. It doesn't take as long. Any individual deal it takes longer than I want it to take, but I feel very confident that we're going to get there, and I'm just trying to enjoy the process. And I think, so I guess that's my answer is try to take it easy when you can, and not take it easy, but like not sweat the things you can't control, and try to enjoy it. Try to enjoy these stages and this scale that we're at, and also know that that you can't. This might sound, I don't know if this sounds contradictory or not, but I really, really believe in karma. And I also believe the sales kind of adage that it's a numbers game. Mm-hmm. And so I feel like no individual deal is within our control. As much as we might feel like, oh, this one's going to close, you never know. Something could, the person could leave the company, or or they lose budget or whatever. But you can get better and better at. For one, you can always have lots of pokers in the fire, lots of opportunities at any point, and you talked about planting seeds earlier. You never know which seed is going to grow, but you do know if you plant enough seeds and kind of plant karmic seeds as well, and just are a decent person, going back to and treat people well and show up positively and be present and care for people and care for your customers, that's going to work. That's going to work a certain percentage of the time, and just keep going. Keep going and keep doing that. Stop doing the stuff that doesn't work. So you stack the odds in your favor. After you feel like, oh, I said this, whatever the scenario is, I said this to a prospect and they kind of lost interest or whatever. Recognize that. Have the humility to recognize the things that you're doing that are failing. Stop doing those things and just keep going. Yep. and then it kind of magically succeeds, because what you're really doing is you're repeating trial after trial after trial, but you're stacking the odds. It's not a scientific thing where you're just doing the same thing no matter what. You're stacking the odds of success in your favor by continuously eliminating the stuff that doesn't work. And if you do that and you keep going, it's almost statistically guaranteed you will eventually succeed if you have enough stamina, basically. So
I want to rephrase that whole thing for you, if I could.
Yeah.
What you need to keep doing is partying on, dudes.
Yeah, there you go.
Partying on, dudes. Be excellent to one another and party on, dudes.
Be excellent to each other and party on, dudes.
Yeah. Oh, George, that's amazing. That's so good. So we're going to wrap up in a little bit, but I do have a few more questions for you if you have a little bit more time.
Yeah, please.
So, and you shared you've got a long-term relationship. You lived in New York. You moved to Boston for a while. You've sold a company. You've worked at one of the best companies in the world by any, Glassdoor or anything. You've started your second company now. So, you talk about a lot of different things. Oh, and you have cats. You also mentioned you have cats.
Yeah.
You got a cat babies. What's something that comes to mind for you that's something that you're most proud of, or what's something that comes to mind for you what you're most proud of?
Yeah, I think it's actually that first thing you rattled off in there. I know we talked a lot about professional stuff and gotten into the personal, but I think Christy and I have been together since freshman year of college, and that puts us at almost 19 years.
Unbelievable.
Right, probably 19 years by the time this airs, and although I don't know how fast you're moving with with the production, but
well, it depends. It depends if you want me to impress Christy or not. How soon do you want her to hear this answer? And that's when we'll put it out.
I told her this answer. Actually, I gave her the preview. I kind of gave away the punchline, but
nice.
Yeah, I mean, as with any relationship, there's ups and downs and challenges. It's not the time alone that I'm proud of, but I think it's that our relationship is so just multidimensional, and we have so many things that we share, and we're such equals in it, which creates probably in some ways more challenges.
Sure.
Because we very consciously don't conform to various kind of traditional roles, and we really treat each other as equals, and have a rich life together, but also have independent lives as well, and things that each of us is respectively into, and that's hard.
Yeah.
It's hard to do that, and to allow each other to change, both individually and to get. Sorry, my cat here is pushing my computer down. But yeah, so I'm proud that we've continued to be partners for all this time, and continue to do so, just with a ton of love and compassion. And we really adventure together. I talked about the first. That's kind of like I kind of believe that relationships and companies and like any big kind of thing that you can kind of draw a line around, like I believe in DNA of that thing, and I feel like our DNA as a couple is like co-pilots or co-adventurers. And cool. we'll kind of look at something, and it's not that we're all equal in everything or do the same thing. In a lot of respects, it's complementary skills and mindsets, but that we'll just have a ton of respect for each other and jump in together.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you did start a company called Wanderfly, so by definition, that immediately brings adventure to mind.
Exactly. Yeah. And and that was our experience in that it was, there's a lot of, you don't realize kind of how much of that karma and kind of, I don't know if destiny is an overly strong word, but is in there in that at the time when it's happening. But yeah, we obviously we love traveling together, but we started a company that is about traveling and about enabling other people to travel, and that the adventure of the company was the bigger adventure for us than any individual trip. Actually, we kind of ironically traveled very little in those years.
Yes.
Although the second that we sold, then we started traveling a lot more.
I can imagine.
Both had income and had corporate jobs for a while.
Yeah, I always have great admiration for people that meet their partner in college, because I was like, when you're like 19, I'm like, dude, I was a disaster when I was 19. Like 19 to like, I met Kirsten when I was 29, almost 30. And I always tell her, if I would have met her a year before, we wouldn't be married. Like so the fact that have maintained that relationship, even at that age, to have that maturity, because I know I did not. I would have, I have a great admiration.
Well, we didn't necessarily either. That's the thing. I mean, we've both changed a lot, and we've taken care of each other, and I think probably the hardest general thing is giving each other the ability to change through those important years and important life stages, and not assuming that the other person or that yourself is the same person that you were at 19 or 24 or 27, or before versus after key events, and kind of giving people the freedom to actually evolve that's hard.
Yeah, no, totally. You ever heard it's a saying for marriage, but I think it applies to just long relationship, is men get married to women expecting them never to change, and they always do. And women get married to men expecting them to change, and they never do. I would say I would say in my marriage, that is pretty accurate. And I say that in both a positive and negative way for me. I'd say like Kirsten has just gotten better with age. I would say like in some ways I'm still that same 19-year-old kid in many ways, as we talk about like playing video games and being impatient and all that stuff. But yeah, it's definitely, relationships are a journey. It's a lot of work, but it's obviously the most important thing. So I think it's super cool that this thing you're most proud of. What's your general philosophy on life? And you've been weaving this in and out through the entire conversation. How would you summarize your philosophy on life? And I'm not even sure we need to, because I feel like George Carlin kind of already summarized it.
Yeah.
So I'm not sure there's much more to say, but if there's anything else you'd like to add to that.
Yeah, I think we've hit it pretty well between that quote and between all of our discussion around abundance and scarcity. I really do believe abundance is possible. It's not everyone's experience, but it's my experience, and I think it's possible that it could be the experience of many, many more people. And I also, I guess along those same lines, I don't think people love to talk about human nature as if it's like either good or evil. And I actually think that it's in both of those things are in all of us. And it really very closely maps to that mindset and to people's experiences with scarcity and abundance. And when you see people do some really heinous things, to use another 80s word, I think frequently I even when I'm on the receiving end of that, and it's tempting to be like, oh, that's a terrible person. Some of the people who have done the worst things to me, I still don't say, oh, they're bad people. I just kind of, sometimes it'll take me months or years to get to this point, but I'll say, no, it's a maladaptation. They're in that scarcity mindset, and they're lashing out just like a scared animal who can seem really vicious. Again, I kind of hark back to my cats, and they can seem super vicious just all of a sudden out of nowhere because they get really scared, and they'll swipe. I mean, my cats almost never swipe at humans, but if you threaten them, they'll attack.
Sure.
And there's some people who feel threatened all the time, and so they attack all the time. And that's tragic, but I think that it's not. I think it's. I don't think people are good or bad. I think people have propensity for an abundance mindset and to operate out of a place of generosity and love. And if they fall into the scarcity mindset, they can operate out of a place of fear and aggression. So it's that's everyone's journey,
Yeah, that's cool. Well, I want to thank you for coming on today. It's been awesome. I'm sure the audience is going to love to, connect with you and get to know you further. So where can we find you? Like, where can we find more about Outlaw, about you personally? Like, how do you like to connect with the people?
Yeah, so certainly on the Outlaw front, we are, as I mentioned, we're in rapid customer acquisition mode. So the website is getoutlaw.com. And there's a pretty prominent, if you think you may need a contract platform, there's a pretty prominent demo booking link. So book a demo and talk to our sales team. On the personal front, I'm kind of somewhere in between in terms of time between my abundance and scarcity mindset. I have plenty of personal time for friends and for new friends and new connections. I would kind of just say, go. I don't want to share my email and phone number. I get a lot of. I unfortunately get a lot of as you kind of mentoring requests and hey, I'm in this space too. Let's meet up for coffee. And I just don't have time for those.
Yeah.
I would love to spend a half an hour with every entrepreneur who's thinking about getting pushed over the edge into doing it. I just can't. So yeah, I'd say certainly connect with our company if there's. I mean, that said, when I get a really genuine, like even just an email.
Sure.
I'll pretty much if it's I'll generally respond. So
nice. What just to wrap on back to the Outlaw piece, what's your ideal client look like? What's the ideal customer look like for you?
Oh, just like a mid-market company. We serve a variety of verticals, so I don't want to go too deep into a vertical mindset, but a lot of service businesses, a lot of logistics kind of stuff, and a lot of tech, kind of mid-stage tech startups. We're really strong in like an MSA, service agreement, engagement agreement kind of context. So I'd say call it a 200 or 300 person company with maybe 10 to 30 people touching contracts, and that's usually across a couple of maybe an in-house legal team of 2 or 3, sales team of 10 or 20, operations people, things like that. And we just really help all the stakeholders involved get on the same page, ensure compliance, ensure that you don't have rogue salespeople going off and changing contract language when they really shouldn't.
Not salespeople, no.
Yeah. And let's be honest, that's one of the top like 1 or 2 complaints when we talk to general counsels. So they love the ability to kind of lock certain things down, but also empower people to do other things so that they don't have to be the bottleneck. So yeah, it's a small to medium group of users who just want to be able to go from contract generation to negotiation all the way through e-signing more fluidly. And it's a great experience for the counterparty. That's what we know because we've been building it and using it for years now. And customers, it's awesome seeing the light turn on as they start using it, and as they start seeing how much easier it is, not just for them, but for their counterparties, which makes it easier for them too. It makes it easier to close faster. So yeah, hopefully that answers the
cool. And I'll be
the acronym target ICP, ideal customer profile.
Ideal customer profile.
Yeah.
So I will be sure in the show notes to add in all the URLs so people can easily find you.
Yes.
And want to wrap up and just thank you for being on today. It's been a really pleasure to talk to you, to learn some new things about you. Yeah, it's been awesome. And I wish you the best of luck with everything you're doing.
Thank you, Jason.
Thanks, Evan. Bye.